When I used to watch stories when I was little, I would always find myself aspiring to be like the super awesome characters that could just do everything and were athletic and acrobatic and always won and everybody liked. And I think that was the insecurity of being a kid who was a late bloomer, if I ever bloomed at all, and wanting to get picked first in gym class and be liked for those attributes that make you popular when you're in elementary school. And so I'd watch a movie and I'd watch it very simply. I'd read a book and I'd read it very simply. I would just like the winners, show me the winners. But then over the course of time, you live a little bit and you see people you love go through things and you go through things, and you see people you love make mistakes and you make mistakes. And I think most of all, as you live a little bit, you discover the effect of time on your own heart and on the lives of people you love, even on the lives of your enemies, I suppose. And you discover that time is an odd bad guy. It's a weird villain. You can't really be mad at him. It just happens. And it changes the way you think about stories and consume stories. Time is an odd adversary and also an odd ally. It's just a very curious character in the whole story of people and life and history and everything. And I think because of that, one of my favorite motifs as I've lived a little bit and parented a little bit in storytelling is the character who used to be really good at something, or they used to have ambition and passion and focus, but then something went wrong in their life, or maybe something went wrong in somebody else's life and they had to do something different and pay attention to something different, go care for somebody else, or go grieve really hard, or go and fight a war overseas, or whatever it is that happened. Things got sidetracked and time ate that part of their dreams and their hopes and their ambition and their clarity. And then that character has some awakening moment where things come back into focus and they get back in the game. And this is going to sound ridiculous, but I have these conversations off the cuff, so I don't have like a stack of notes here like, oh, say this and mean it. So I got to think of it on the fly, and I'm buying time because I can't remember the name of the character. But in Cars, yes, the animated Cars, you get a character like this, right? And I don't know his name. Hudson something? Henry Hudson? No, that's the Explorer. I don't know. There's a character whose name I think has Hudson. It's the blue car, the Hudson Hornet. That he used to be a great racer, and then stuff happened and all of that got crushed. And then Owen Wilson comes along and it's like, wow. And that just awakens him. And all of a sudden he does amazing things again. Or the Rohirrim from the Lord of the Rings, the Return of the King, this people group that is beat down and used to have vision and nobility. But for them, it wasn't just one person losing focus. It was all of them over the course of generations. Some sort of cultural guilt or failure or sadness manifest as an isolationism and a withdrawal from relationships in the larger world. And then when they awaken and charge into battle at Pelennor Fields and that violin score plays. I mean, that is the music now that is forever attached in my brain to this character archetype in storytelling or in the real world. That's the theme of a once proud person or proud people in the best sense of that word, who had something break, terribly break, that broke all the way down to the level of their heart and their sense of self and calling and motivation, and then something awakened to that. And then one last time into the breach, they muster the courage and the clarity, and the scales fall off the eyes, and the hands and the muscles remember who they were and what they did a long time ago. And a task that looked like it was never going to be completed gets completed. It's that surprise renaissance. It's the old swordsman or royal guard who feels he failed, who's lived out his years in hiding, who is now awakened. And we realize as the story unfolds that he didn't have what it took to complete the task as a young man. and that the ensuing passage of time is what has now given him the character and the perspective needed to finish the job, or to be or become what he needs to be, or to give away what he needs to give. In the simplest terms, it's the completion of a very, very long character arc. And this isn't just something that happens in movies. This is something that happens in life. And I think it's one of the most noble and most encouraging of stories. And Act 3 of the building of the temple story in Ezra, to me, feels like that. I hear that charge of ride of the Rohirrim theme of this awakening of a people who went dormant for a period of time, and it looks like it's going to be over. And they are awakened here at the beginning of Act 3 by the words of two prophets. Remember where we left off yesterday at the end of Act 2 in the story of building the temple in Ezra, we have the calamity, the tragedy, the crisis that happens. Thus, the work on the house of God in Jerusalem came to a standstill. And we're just left to stew on that unfinished business that looks like it has no hope of being made right until the beginning of chapter 5, the beginning of Act 3, where we hear the names of a couple of people whose energy and enthusiasm and vision and directness are going to grab the long dormant sleepers by the shoulders and shake them back into action. It goes like this, Ezra 5:1. Now Haggai the prophet and Zechariah the prophet, a descendant of Edo, prophesied to the Jews in Judah and Jerusalem in the name of the God of Israel who was over them. Then Zerubbabel, son of Shealtiel, and Jeshua, son of Jozadak, set to work to rebuild the house of God in Jerusalem, and the prophets of God were with them, helping them. Zerubbabel had scales on his eyes. He turned into an old man. His shoulders were slumped. He got defeated. He got outmaneuvered politically. Maybe politics wasn't his deal. Maybe he was just a take-action guy who could see a thing and use his youthful enthusiasm to go and tear into a big, giant project that nobody else would even know how to touch. He didn't get to see his fathers be kings, yet he is a king. He doesn't know how to step back into that role. He just knows that a temple needs to be built. We need to get people from here to there. And so he gets part way, but when he runs into the intricacies of gossipy, backstabby, stupid political court life, he's outmatched by these local governors and by his enemies. Of course, I could be reading into this at this point, and of course, a super smart person could read this better or a different way, but to me, it looks like he becomes a defeated man whose clear, driving, singular purpose is now gone. His optimism is beaten down. But then along come these two guys, Haggai and Zechariah, and they look at the situation. They're like, why are you guys giving up on the temple? Why are you putting all of your resources into building fancy little houses for yourselves in the Persian style so that you can just go in there and hide? And what? Get old and die? Okay, that second part of what they might have been saying, that was a little bit more, that was paraphrased, but they come and they call everybody out. What are you doing? What happened to you? You had such clarity. Pick up the trowel. Pick up your tools. Remember who you are. Do the thing you're supposed to do. And the message works. And I picture a hunched over, broken man in Zerubbabel rising from his old man sitting chair and being like, yeah, you know what? Yes. I didn't have what it takes to finish this before, and I do now. We didn't have what it takes, and we do now. And the prophets, with the encouragement of God, are right there next to the people in this truth and confidence and clarity that is being spoken into them and into the situation by these prophets is going to prove to be the catalyst for this awakening that was needed after probably something like 15 years of time having passed. And once that awakening occurs, once that starts to play in the background, they are off and running with a renewed sense of purpose. And as we'll see next time around, as we conclude this story of the rebuilding of the temple, now even the stupid court politics and letter writing campaigns and backstabbiness of the political world cannot slow them down. And the same God who sent the prophets to speak into the situation and awaken them also seems to be providentially working behind the scenes to defeat the political machinations that had slowed them down in the past. We'll round out that story next time around. And in the meantime, between today and tomorrow, I'm going to unapologetically reflect on how encouraging I find these kinds of stories of awakening and recapturing of purpose and of now having what it takes finally to play the role that you're supposed to play and to be who you're supposed to be in the story. In this case, all at the direction and under the encouragement of God himself. I think it's absolutely awesome. We'll finish the temple and get it dedicated tomorrow. I'm Matt. This is the 10-Minute Bible Hour podcast. Let's do this again soon.